My name is Zach Carr, CEO and co-founder of Block Clinical. So I think first I'd like to talk about what's happening in the industry that's causing some problems for the clinical trial industry and really why these problems haven't gone away. The clinical trial industry is intently focused on patient centricity and patient-centric trial design. Yet collectively, I'd say we struggle to put tangible actions into place. Clinical trials are highly competitive, and by that I mean that there just aren't enough patient volunteers for clinical trials to fill them all. Something like 40 million volunteers would be needed to fill the 345,000 plus clinical trials that are registered here in the US, and that equates to like 1 in every 10 people you know. The industry invests a lot of resources to improve patient recruitment, yet once patients enroll, over 30% drop out before the study ends. And why is that? Simply put, the burdens of trial participation outweigh the benefits of participation in the eyes of the patient. And so here's our tangible approach. We're hoping to create a movement in the industry to standardize patient support as policy for clinical trial sponsors and CROs so that all patients that enroll in clinical trials receive the support they deserve. Concepts like $0 out of pocket for all expenses, which are typically fronted by patients, logistics coordinators who take care of planning and prepaying for travel for each and every visit, virtualizing visits so that patients don't have to travel to the research site in the first place, and even bringing the trial to the patient's home. And collectively, these initiatives reduce the stress, financial burdens, and time patients and caregivers have to spend in order to participate in trials. So patient-first category is extremely important because really everything the industry does is for the patient, and it affects how trials are designed and supported by trial sponsors, i.e. those that are paying for these trials. So the big problem is that traditionally these types of initiatives that I described previously are disparate, bolt-on, and fairly expensive, meaning they aren't applied to all patients across all trials. At clinic visits to taking place in patients' homes, and virtually via telehealth or by leveraging wearables, for example. So one-size-fit-all solutions do not fit in this case, and new logistical issues are presenting themselves as trials shift to new models. Meet Block Clinical. As I alluded to earlier, our mission is really to standardize through policy, let's call it strategic patient support, how all patients that enroll in clinical trials are supported, from immediate payments and reimbursements to prepaid travel and logistics, to ensuring really that all logistics are in place and managed professionally, whether the visit is at the clinic, at the home, or done via telehealth. And so winning Xconomy Patient First Award would give us the platform really to raise awareness and further educate the industry that our mission is possible. A big part of how we will get there is by leveraging our purpose-built technology to create efficiencies, which drive down patient support costs, provide full transparency and financial oversight to sponsors and CROs, and really create new value propositions to ensure a positive ROI on each and every visit, no matter the patient, visit, or trial type. And so we're really embracing interoperability with other systems specifically and suppliers. So for example, EDC and ePro systems that collect trial data from patients, travel and logistics suppliers, et cetera. We use these data triggers to do things like automate payments, automate site and booking of logistics and delivery of logistics. These collective services have traditionally been manual, siloed processes, or even worse, managed by the patients themselves, which creates unnecessary costs to trial budgets and prevents sponsors really from applying these types of services universally. So in the end, our approach will improve the quality of clinical trials, improving patient satisfaction, which leads to more patients volunteering for trials and more remaining through conclusion.
Well, thank you very much for nominating me for the Xconomy Awards. I guess the story started for me in 1989. I joined Pfizer, and I've spent the last 30 odd years in the pharmaceutical industry, really as an agent of change, developing new processes, new procedures, trying to develop new roles, functions, and in more recent times, developing new companies to try and improve the clinical trials process. It's been what I've done for the majority of my life, and for the last 15 years, I've been running the Medical Research Network, which is a truly innovative organisation that has developed a brand new way of working in the clinical trial space. But back in 2005, when that started, the there really were very few, if any, people who understood that you could run clinical research in patients' homes. It was a tiny market with a very small number of players. We started off actually thinking at the MRN that we were the only people in the world that did this work. We found a couple of other suppliers over time, but fundamentally it's a very niche business. And we've been growing that business ever since. From about 2012 onwards, MRN has been the market leader in our sector. We would have said that we've been the market maker for most of the last 15 years. We are well versed in clinical trials, we're well versed in clinical research, and so we knew fundamentally what it was that the clinical research world really needed. Essentially, for the last 20 odd years, there's been a chronic problem in terms of developing recruitment and retention strategies for patients into clinical trials. And it's critically important that we try and reverse the long-term trend to which damages the development of recruitment in our space. We started to see significant improvements in clinical trials when we started our services, and ultimately today we typically see a 50% or more increase in recruitment for patients in our trials compared to those sites that don't use our type of service. The market has developed on an intuitive basis. When we talk to most people, they've been saying to us, "Yeah, okay, that makes real sense that we should be able to do that clinical trial in the home." But of course, it's fraught with complexities. It's a highly logistical exercise. Many things need to be in the right place at the right time, and so the industry is, of course, somewhat careful about how it adopts new approaches and new technologies. But despite that, MRN has achieved a 35% growth per annum ever since we were formed, and has been a great success story. Really, it's based on the fact that we offer two key freedoms to our patients. The first one is we allow them to be seen where they want, and the second one is we allow them to be seen when they want. Clearly, most patients today have to live quite close to their hospital that's running their clinical trial. With our types of services, they can live much further away. Not only that, though, patients don't always have the time to go into the hospital. The workload of taking part in a clinical trial is really high. So we are able to reduce the true burden of the clinical trial on the patient by bringing the trial into their home and allowing them the flexibility that delivers. At least 30% of our clinical trial visits are done out of hours in the evenings and at weekends, and probably another 50% are done at a different time from when the clinic is operating in the hospital to which the patient would have to go. We're all patients at some point in our life, most likely, and we don't really want to go to hospital. There are many reasons why we wouldn't want to go. We want to stay at school, we want to keep going to work, we don't like the idea of having to go into hospital, it takes too much time. So delivering these services to the patient in the home is a really important way of improving the patient experience.
Well, I'm Patrick Anquetil. As you can hear from my accent, I'm from France. I came to the US to study. I did a PhD at MIT and basically never left. I love the environment. I love Xconomy actually as well. I think it really captured the spirit of the city and of the nation actually as well. So what we're doing at Portal is really important, but unfortunately oftentimes overlooked. And it really deals with patients suffering from chronic diseases. As some of you may know, when you have such a disease like, let's say, diabetes, or it could be rheumatoid arthritis, hemophilia, some bowel diseases like Crohn's and colitis, for example, you oftentimes are prescribed a biologic. And unfortunately, those drugs don't come in pills as of yet. And even when they do, who knows if the bioavailability of those drugs will be as good as the injectable forms. So as a result, it creates a big trouble for patients in that if they suffer from such a chronic disease, they then pretty much are prescribed to inject themselves for the rest of their lives. So imagine you're a patient, you just received this horrible diagnosis. On top of that, the next thing you hear is that now you've got to prick yourself and stab yourself with a needle pretty much with the rest of your life. So Portal Instruments was started with the intention to change that and to offer a solution that's needle-free. And interestingly, because this is actually a technology coming out of MIT, it's computer controlled, and as such, because of this, we can easily connect the device to the cloud and offer actually enhanced disease management on top of that.
Could you speak specifically about why this is a fit for patients first?
Yeah, sure. So, well, perhaps you have loved ones who have such a chronic disease where they need to inject themselves. It's really a challenge in that now, aside from the even if, let's say, if you don't have any fear of needles, which interestingly is actually not the case, and universally, folks I think across the world are actually really afraid of it. But let's just say, even if you put that aside, you still have the issue of managing needles, which is tremendously challenging. So you worry always about leaving your needle basically aside. You worry about a loved one or perhaps your pet inadvertently pricking themselves. Disposing of needles, interesting, we never talk about this, completely overlooked subject. It's a big challenge. We have some of our team members are patients. One of them actually is collecting those those sharps containers, because very few places, in the US take those. We have another patient who's a team member. What she does, she actually puts those sharps container in her bags, and then when she travels back to her home, her mother is able to dispose of them. We've heard from patients also just tossing those needles into the trash, thinking that it's safe to do so, and so on. So I think as biologics become more and more the norm to treat patients, this not only becomes a challenge for patients, it also becomes a challenge for society. And I wouldn't be surprised if in a few years, we sort of society becomes up in arm against this challenge. So our vision is a needle-free world. We're starting with biologics because this is where there's the most value that we can capture back from a business perspective. But certainly our vision is a needle-free world. And if you think of it, this container is just a piece of plastic. There are no sharps, no metals. So on a first principle basis, because there are less materials being used, the cost of this guy, it's reusable, so this one will go to zero, and the cost of the disposable should be smaller than the needle and syringe. So in theory also, we have the ability to impact global health as well, right? And so that's kind of the vision. The vision is to start with high value drugs, because that's, from a business perspective, that's the easiest way for us to get going. But the vision really is to eliminate needles along the way, and to go all the way to global health as well.
Michele Rhee. I am the VP of Patient Affairs and Advocacy at X4 Pharma. And I am incredibly grateful and honored to be nominated for the Patients First Award. It's really special to me and very personal to me to be nominated for this award, because I myself am a patient. I think a lot of people in this industry are drawn here because of personal experience. And I myself was diagnosed with cancer when I was 20, and that was actually the first symptom of a rare disease that I have, which was diagnosed when I was 21. And that is what led me to patient advocacy and ultimately drug development, because I didn't want other patients to go through what I had gone through. I wanted to help people who had nothing, who didn't have therapies. And I wanted to make sure that they had a good experience while they were going through it. And that is what ultimately led me to the career that I have now, to the work that I do now every single day. And to know that I was nominated by a colleague I respect enormously, and to be able to do the work that I do every day at a company that I love is wonderful. The reason that I joined X4 is because they genuinely do put patients first. They do incorporate patient perspectives into the decisions that we make every day. And I think that was really exemplified earlier this year where with the COVID outbreak, I think almost immediately we all knew there were going to be changes and that our patients were going to be concerned, especially for us. Our patients that we serve are diagnosed with severe primary immune deficiencies. And we just wanted to know across the board, so many people, everybody wanted to know how our patients felt. And there was so much support for going directly to patients and asking them, how do you feel? What's going on? How is this impacting you? And so I was able to go out, field surveys to our patient communities and just ask them, like, how are you feeling? What are you thinking? Like, how has this changed your day-to-day, your decision-making? And that allowed us to then change our decisions at the company. It changed how we operate. It changed decisions about how we're running our clinical trials. It really genuinely made a difference immediately at our company, which is remarkable and wonderful, and why I love my company and I love the work that I do. Because when I think about our industry, about why we exist as an industry, we're here for patients first. We wouldn't exist as an industry if it weren't for patients. And it's not just about drug development and getting therapies to patients, which is our ultimate goal, why we exist existentially, but also just why we exist logistically. We're here to get therapies to patients. But it's not just what we do, it's how we do it. Are we really putting patients first in our decision making? And I really, at least for me, obviously incredibly passionate about making sure that not only are we doing this and getting therapies to patients, which I desperately want. I want patients who don't have anything to have something, but I want us to be able to do it in a way where we're proud of how we do it. And we're proud to share that with our patient communities. So when I think about this award, I really want every company at some point to win this award, because I want every company to be doing this. I want every company to be putting patients first. I want every company to be thinking in this way, because this should be the way that we all operate. I'm incredibly lucky to have found a company where I can do my work, to do this work in a way where we all think about it this way, because I couldn't work at a company that didn't really genuinely put patient perspectives and put patients first. But we incorporate patient perspectives into our clinical trial designs, into all of our decision making, but we're also, we're going to have a book club where we're going to be written by patients. We're doing a lot of things where we try to make sure that we're pulling those patient perspectives into all of our decision making, so that we really are thinking about the how, not just the what at the end of it. So I hope that when at the end of the day we do develop that therapy, everyone is proud of all of the steps that we took along the way to get there.